Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to my podcast, Spiritual Talk with Christy, Godwin, and Friends. I'm a resident psychic medium, Christy Godwin, and I have the beautiful Shelley with me. Thank you, thank you. Shelley, now I'm going to pronounce your last name. It's a long one. Is it Heidebrink? It's a long one, people, but it's beautiful. And now Shelley is here, and I've had her on before. Please, if you want to listen to the original podcast, go back and look. It is the grieving the loss of a child, and Shelley, unfortunately, is walking that path. Now, Shelley, can you share a little bit about your journey and your experience after losing your child?
Sure. So I lost my son, Lawson. He was 22. He passed away in August of 2021. He was my whole world. He was born into this world with challenges. He was developmentally disabled on the autism spectrum and had some other challenges that he faced. So for me, every day was just what Lawson needed. Our whole family was always about everything Lawson, whether it was our family vacations, and all the things. So obviously when he left this planet, left this earthly presence, it left a huge void in all of our lives. So we've had the challenge of trying to figure out kind of our identity of who we are without Lawson. Like, who am I on this different journey of Lawson's mom?
It's hard enough to face grief and loss around the holiday season, but especially whenever so much of those holidays revolved around Lawson and what he wanted and how and not in a selfish way. He was just so
No.
joyful, and it was such a joy to give him joy. Everyone just naturally, well, what does Lawson want to do? What does Lawson want to do? And so I can imagine rolling in this holiday season, it's even worse because the person who kind of drove the car and what you were going to do is no longer here. How has the holiday season been for you? How have you coped with that since the loss of your child?
So I'm headed into the third Christmas. We just celebrated the third Thanksgiving without Lawson. Um, I think everyone has been different. The first one, obviously, we were still numb. Like, none of us knew what it even looked like. The second one, still different. The third one, still different. I feel like, people say time makes it better. Time doesn't make it better. What we find is a new acceptance that this is our life, and that we're still in charge of what that looks like. So this year, being into my third holiday season without Lawson, I have found some different peace. The first year I was adamant I was not decorating. Like, I wasn't going to happen. I did, but not much. Last year, I actually had a Christmas tree that stood in my living room for a good part of a week before I decided I would really decorate it, because my husband said we have to have a tree. And this year, my decorations have been up for a couple weeks already. Like, it felt right. I felt like he was with me, pushing me to do it. Lawson loved Christmas. Lawson loved every holiday, but Lawson was the magic in our house at Christmas. So this year, I'm finding peace in letting him in and bringing back some of the things that him and I used to do together at the holidays. I've revamped my Christmas music list, and I've decorated early. I have most of my shopping done, and I'm just gonna take it for what comes for
Now,
the
I know
next
that
few.
you have another child and grandchildren.
Yes.
So, how do you navigate those feelings of loss and just emptiness and still show up for your other child and your grandbabies?
I think it took me a little while to realize that grief and joy can coexist. Having the grief for the loss, we protect each other almost to a fault, like where we won't share a happy memory with each other, my daughter and I, or we'll text each other and say, trigger alert, like, so like, it's coming. And then we'll share a picture or a memory or a video, like, hey, if you're not in a space where you can do this right now, it's coming, ignore it. Like, those are just things we've set up, like, to say, I want to share this because I'm having this moment right now, and it means something to me. But I understand that you might not be in a place right now where you can receive it, and that's okay. So, and then grandchildren, I have a 3.5-year-old granddaughter and a 1.5-year-old grandson, and they love Christmas, and in some ways I see Lawson in them in that because he so loved Christmas. And even at 22, he believed in Santa. He had a developmental disability that I remember shortly after he passed away, someone said to my husband, I have no idea what you're going through. I have no idea what that feels like. And he said, imagine having a 5-year-old at Christmas for 22 years, because that's what we had. We had that special magic of Christmas who believed in everything for 22 years.
I love how y'all have set up trigger warnings because it's my business. I work with grieving people. And I know some days they want to do nothing but talk about memories of that loved one. And other days they can't handle it. And it's okay. It is absolutely okay to have those different days, but you don't know what the person on the receiving end, which day they're in. So I love that y'all have set that up. What is one of the the most beautiful memories that sticks out about Lawson and Christmas?
So Lawson was probably 5 or 6. We had moved into a new house. It was the first house that didn't have a chimney. And he was just adamant, like, how in the world was Santa coming on Christmas? Like,
I could see
Mom,
him
we
doing
cannot
that.
have Christmas without a chimney. Like, he was adamant. And so my husband actually found a gentleman that he worked with that played the role of Santa Claus over the holidays. And so it was Christmas Eve. And just to take it one step back, my daughter was 10, 11. She did not believe in Santa any longer. And so my husband had found a gentleman who played Santa. He said, wrap some presents, put them in the garage. I will come on Christmas Eve. Kind of gave us a window. He was doing a lot of home visits that year. And so our window maybe was between 4 and 5, just as it was getting dark. And so I made sure Lawson and I were in the kitchen baking Christmas cookies for Santa. It's Christmas Eve, right? And so we're making some peanut butter blossoms, and our garage in our new house was actually detached. So it was between the kitchen and the garage. There was like a window and like a walkway to a back patio area. And this gentleman, Santa, came through like ringing Christmas bells. Like you could hear him. And Lawson was like, what is that? And honestly, with his autism and social delays, I wasn't sure how he would react. Like, is this going to be good or bad? Like, but it's Santa, right? So the guy goes into the garage, gets the stuff, and starts jingling the bells even more. And he comes to the door and he like knocks on the door. And I'm like, Lawson, let's see who's at the door. And my daughter is also there. And we open the door and it's Santa. And Lawson was just magic. Like, oh, Santa, come in, come in. We're just making cookies for you. And Santa sits down and hands out presents. And one of the presents was a Santa key that was like inscribed with a message to leave it on the door for Santa to use on Christmas Eve. But the other thing was, in my home, I didn't spend money on video games. If my kids wanted video games, they had to earn the money, they had to pay for it. And this was like the first year that the Wii came out, and Madison wanted a Wii more than anything in the world. And I kept saying, I don't spend money on games. So you better ask Santa, like, cause I'm not doing it. And Santa brought our family a Wii that year. And so in that moment, even my daughter, who hadn't believed in Christmas or hadn't believed in Santa in a long time, was like, when he left, she was like, who was that? I'm like, it was Santa. And she's like, no, but Mom, really, who was it? I'm like, what did he bring you? Because I'm not buying a Wii. Like, it was Santa. And she will tell that story for years, that in that moment, for a brief moment, she believed in Santa.
She was even questioning.
Yeah. Like, well, I know Mom would never spend money on video games, so it had to be Santa, right? Like, but just the magic. Like, he was just like, oh, come in, like, not afraid at all.
I can feel your relief in that moment because
Yeah.
Lawson, you just didn't know how he was going to react in any given moment. So it was wonderful and beautiful to see the joy on his face. Now, when you preserve his memory at Christmas, do you do the same thing every year, or have you found a different way to do it each year?
So some of each. Lawson passed away in August. The first year, the Saturday after Thanksgiving, kind of that kickoff to the holiday season, we knew it was going to be hard. I started what I call the Heart of Lawson dinner. So it's the Saturday after Thanksgiving. We gather with friends. His special ed teacher that used to come to the house, his wife, some of the caregivers that used to take care of him in our home before he passed away, some close family, one of my sisters, usually my daughter, her husband, the kids. And we get together and we kick it off. Like, we have food that reminds us of Lawson. Some of his favorites. This year we did a baked potato bar, we did a hot cocoa bar. It was completely Polar Express themed. So that is something that we have done every year since he passed away. The Saturday after Thanksgiving, it's kind of that, okay, we survived the first holiday, the next one's coming. We get together with some of the people that mean the most to us. We call them our Lawson people. And we laugh, we cry, we play games, we eat food, and we just do it. Like, we get
I
together.
love that it's because you have these two holidays back to back that just you don't really have time to recover from Thanksgiving and the feeling of that loss before you're rolling into Christmas. Because especially nowadays, I mean, people are already starting to decorate and it's in your face immediately. And so I love that y'all take kind of a breather in between the two to say it's okay to grieve again together, to revisit Lawson memories, and to just pay him honor. I love that. I really do. What
So that's one that we've kept every year. Some of the other ones kind of come and go. It kind of just depends. You know, Lawson and I did a lot of cookie baking and goodie making and gave it all away every year. That was one of the things. And the last 2 years, one of my sisters had said, I said, I just can't do it. Like, I can't. It's something I
right,
can't do alone. I've always done it with him. And she said,
right.
I'll come do it with you. So for the last 2 years, her and I did it, and we did all the goodie making and things. And this year, I just decided I just didn't want to do it. And I think that's okay.
I think it's
So
okay too.
sometimes, yeah, sometimes we do the same, and we've done many things. We've adopted a family in his name. We've given gifts. We've given money. We have, just served different communities kind of in his honor. And so some of them are the same and some of them are different. I give myself the freedom to say
Yes.
no.
I was about to say when you finish talking to it, I think it's important, and I love that you give yourself grace to allow things to change.
Yeah.
You know, you tried the cookie baking and the goodie making with your sister for a couple of years. It still wasn't working. So now you're like, you know what? This year I'm not going to do it. So now this year you're doing something different. You're going to see how that feels to you. I love that you give yourself the grace to be able to change those things, change what you do in his honor. If it's working, great. If not, then find something else. So this is a big one. What coping mechanisms or rituals have you found that are helpful to manage your grief during the holiday season? Because I'm sure there's some days you wake up and you can just hardly breathe because of the weight of the grief.
I guess one of the biggest coping mechanisms that I have found for myself is I just don't commit to anything.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
When people say, well, we're having this, we're doing this, can you this? I say, I'll try, or probably not. And I let that be okay. Or I'll say, I'm not sure. I would like to, but also not committing, because there's nothing worse than feeling like you are going to fail somebody else if you don't show up, that someone else is counting on you, and you don't know what you're going to wake up feeling like that day. Today, it might sound great to go meet the Santa train, but tomorrow it might feel impossible. So when someone invites me to something for the holidays, I usually lead with, oh my gosh, I would love to. However, I will do my best. Like, I will try, but please do not be offended if I don't show. The holidays are hard.
And I want people who are listening to that are on the opposite. They're the ones doing the inviting. Maybe they're a family member and they have just had a falling out with their sibling who lost a child and they didn't understand why all of a sudden they stopped showing up. There is no time limit to grieving, especially when it is a child. There is no time limit. When you lose a child, yes, it's horrible when we lose our parents, but realistically, we expect to because they age. They're older than us, and that is the cycle of life. We are not supposed to bury our children. We're just not. And so if you are listening to this, don't be offended when someone, I don't care if it's 5, 8 years down the road. I have seen people, they might be triggered that morning. They might think that they are in a great mood. They're going to be okay. They see something, they smell something, they hear something that takes them right back to the day and the feelings and the grief they experienced when lost their child, and they just can't function. So if you're on the receiving end of that, if you're the one doing the inviting and someone is canceling at last minute because of that, please don't be offended. Give them some grace and mercy, because losing a child, there is nothing like it. Now, how has your support network, your friends and family members, helped you during the holidays?
So I think one I spoke to a little bit, like the heart of Lawson, like having all of the people who mean the most to us just show up, for that one dinner a year that makes me know that they haven't forgotten, that they
Real
miss you
quick, I
too.
want to, for everyone listening, she calls it the Heart of Lawson. And the Heart of Lawson is the event just that y'all have right after Thanksgiving every
Right.
year when people show up and y'all have his favorite foods and play games and talk about him. And it's all about celebrating Lawson's amazing heart.
Right. So those people that show up that, I mean, they don't have to. I mean, nobody has to, right? But
Right.
they come and we have so much fun and we spend the time. So that to me brings me peace. It fills my soul. It really gives me the strength to make it through the rest of the Christmas season. Some of the other things, like I come from a family of 9 children, so I have 5 sisters. So, any given day, any one of them may receive a different side of me.
Right.
So
Right.
just their grace in the holidays, I try really hard not to be offended by other people's joy, but some days it's more than I can handle. When other people are happy and I'm having a hard day, I'm like, yep, that must be great. I probably shouldn't talk today. Like, I'm gonna just go. So just understanding, like people understanding that some days it's too much and I just need to be alone. Um, my immediate family, my husband, my daughter, her husband, and my grandchildren, I mean, we have that safe space. Like if one shows up happy and the other one's bawling, we just roll with it. Like we talk about it if we can. If they don't want to talk about it, we don't talk about it. So yeah, I have some friends that are further away that aren't here, like physically close to me, but just messages that say, hey, I'm thinking of you, or hey, this came up and it made me think of you, or made me think of Lawson. And that's huge when other people remember him, like when other
Yeah.
people take the time to say, oh my gosh, I saw this and I thought of him. I had a friend who posted on Facebook the other day. It was a picture of something that totally reminded me of Lawson, and their caption was, when you know, you know. And I went, that was for me. That was totally
Yes.
for me,
Yes.
like when you know, you know. So yeah, just things like that remind us that he mattered to other people, not
Um,
just to us.
Something that I had done, I had a friend who lost a child, and of course I was very, supportive, but then that following Christmas, not thinking anything about it, I sent out Christmas cards, just like I always did. And they always had our family on it. And she wasn't being, and I was so thankful that she felt safe enough with me to tell me this, that she came back and she was talking about how hurtful it was to receive cards with these smiling families on them. Because, and she was thankful for people. She was glad they were happy, but then it was just a slap in the face that she did not have that full, complete family anymore. And I'm not saying this is the right answer, but from then on, if I had a friend who lost a child, not necessarily if they lost a parent or anything, but if they lost a child, I would send a plain. I would just buy a set of plain Christmas cards instead of the ones that were made with my family on it and send that to them. I'm not sure if it was helpful or not, but that was just my own personal decision so that they weren't slapped in the face with, here it is Christmas, and here's my smiling family that's complete, and they were missing a member of theirs.
to talk just to that for a moment, this is the first year that we did family pictures. It's the first year I felt like I could, like that I could take a family picture without my son. So the third Christmas, over 2 years ago, the first Christmas, I did Christmas cards, but I did one that didn't say Merry Christmas. It said, "What a year." And because Lawson had still been part of our family that year, I put pictures of him on it. It was his graduation. It was things like that. Last year, I wasn't going to do Christmas cards, and kind of way last minute, like random middle of December, I'm like, yeah, my sister was around. I said, you just snap some pictures of me and my husband in the snow on the deck. And across from our house, there was a picture of the bench that we put in with his memorial on it. And so I put a picture of us on his bench because it, to me, felt like we were including him.
Right.
So this year is the first year that my daughter, her husband, my grandkids, me, and my husband actually did professional pictures. My grandson's a year and a half. We haven't had any since he was born. He kind of came in the midst of it. And so I think, again, give yourself grace. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
And it doesn't
I can say the cruelest thing that has happened to me is last year I got a Christmas card from a family member with my deceased son's name on it.
Now, what was their purpose? Did they think they were being helpful by including his name?
I'm not sure because it didn't go well when that conversation happened. To me, it felt like, I don't know. The excuse was that, oh, those are just my Christmas labels, and it's always been there because he always lived at home. But that was the second Christmas, and it wasn't there the first Christmas. So clearly you added it this Christmas. I'm not sure why. But sometimes we have to protect ourselves. And so I've just asked that family member not mail me anything ever again.
Like if you can't, yes.
Just address it to my husband and leave everybody else's name off. That'll keep it simple for you. That's your brother.
And I want to play devil's advocate here. So now maybe, if she thought she was doing something good by saying, oh, Lawson is still part of their family. Let me put their name on there. But then when you voiced your concern that it was not helpful, it was actually hurtful, did they apologize?
No. I was told, do you honestly think that I would do something intentionally to hurt you? I said, well, it felt pretty intentional. You added their name. Like it felt intentional.
For everyone listening,
this is the same family member who told me I should be living a better life because my burden's been lifted. So, no,
that was also discussed in the last podcast. If you want to hear that, that was something else that, someone called it, sweet dear Lawson, a burden. But for those listening, also know that if you do make a faux pas, if you're doing something and you think it's going to be helpful, but it's not received, and the person receiving it is hurt by it or didn't find it helpful, explain where you did and apologize.
Right.
If you didn't mean to do it and it was hurtful, say, I'm so sorry. This is where my thought process was with it. I thought, I'm so sorry. Apologize. Right. Don't defend your position. Just apologize, because when someone is grieving, give them grace. Now, Shelley, if you have a friend or a family member that has lost someone during this time of the year, and you don't really know them well enough to be able to say what mindset they're in, what could they do that would be helpful?
I think for me, it's always when people say their name, when people remember someone. If I've been on the receiving end of some great gifts that, while hard to receive just because they bring up those memories, have meant the world to me because someone else took the time, whether it's a photo of like the past that they framed to give to me, whether it's a card that has a special memory in it that, I have a lantern that someone had, a friend of mine had engraved, and it says, you'll always be our light, and it has his name on it. And
I love that.
Different things. It can be symbolic, like something that, like, so for example, like Lawson loved the Polar Express. So if someone, I've even had people send me pictures of their Christmas decoration and be like, this is my Lawson corner. And it's like, it's something that says believe, because believe is big on the Polar Express, right? So it's what makes them think of him. And so I think showing up even when it's hard, I think accepting the no when they're not going to come, letting people know it's okay to be last minute. If I say, I'm not sure I'm going to make it, the words, it's okay if you decide you want to, if you just come, don't worry that you didn't RSVP. There'll be plenty, there'll be a plate for you. There's a place for you, even in that last minute, even if you didn't plan to come, we want you here. However, what's important to me is that you take care of yourself. So if this isn't a place for you, I'm good with that. So ornaments that mean something, they can be symbolic, they can actually be engraved, they can be, like I said, like you said, it's the Christmas card that doesn't have the smiling faces on it. My family, if I'm being honest, sad but true, I said I came from a family of 9. I lost my brother so my mom lost a child when I was 3, but also 2 of my brothers have lost children. So there's 3 of us of the 9 that have lost children. And so it's very common in our family not to have that group text on Christmas that says Merry Christmas, whatever. But instead we individual text and we say things like, we're thinking of you. I hope you have a great day. Just know that your person isn't forgotten. Like we'll say like, hey, I'm thinking of you. I know it's a hard day. Had a great memory of Lawson this morning, or said a prayer for you guys today, because not everybody's having a great Christmas. We try, we still want it, but it's never going to be the same.
And I agree that so many people just want their child's name remembered. They want them remembered because there's not a day that goes by that the parent doesn't think about them and they're frozen in time. And I just want to bring up anyone watching this, because this is a podcast, but my podcasts are also uploaded with Shelley's and I, in live in person to my YouTube channel. There is a picture of Lawson behind her on the wall that I keep gravitating towards. He's sitting there with Santa.
That is on the Polar Express. We went on the Polar Express train in Middleton, Wisconsin. And so that is part of my Christmas decor every year, is Lawson on the Polar Express going to the North Pole to tell Santa that he wanted an orange rotary phone that I ended up ordering from Hong Kong. And I paid over $200 for to get it by Christmas, because he told Santa at the North Pole he was getting an orange phone for Christmas. So how can you not? Because
exactly. I absolutely love that. And that's another thing that could be a trigger, that out of the blue, you think that you and your friend are out having a good time, having lunch, whatever. When you pass by the Polar Express is coming, and all of a sudden your friend's having a meltdown. You have no idea why. It's because that memory. So you do not know what is going to trigger people. Just show up. And I love when Shelley said, show up, no matter how hard it is.
Sometimes the awkward silence is all it is, but yes, you're there. I had a friend who actually told me one time, I miss Lawson so much. And I'm like, really? Because I've never heard you say that. Like, say that to me. And she's like, I don't feel like I can, because I know you miss him more. I know that me saying I miss him, you miss him more. And I feel like it's unfair. I'm like, but I want to hear it. We all want to hear. We want to hear that other people miss them.
Yes. Now, I know we've covered this in different ways during this podcast, but what advice would you give to grieving parents who are facing a holiday season without their child?
I think that can vary. Like if you have other children that are still at home, that still have the holidays and all that, I understand that that's a whole different ballgame. Lawson was my youngest. So I guess in that moment, you just have to do your best.
Oh, Shelley, wait a minute. Before you go on, I just have to stop. Do your best, people. Is asking for you to get everything right. And some days, I just put out a meme about this the other day. It's, some days you show up and you move mountains. Other days you trip over your own shoelaces. However you show up is fine. Give yourself grace. And also, if there's someone in your family who is not giving you grace, who is not allowing you to show up however you can, it's okay to put up boundaries. It's okay to distance yourself. I'm not trying to start a family feud or anything. I'm not saying to cut these
No.
people out of your life, but just put up some boundaries. Distance yourself a little bit. Okay, I'm sorry, Shelley, go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay to take care of yourself. And I guess that's where I would go if you don't have other children at home and your stress or pressures come from people outside the home, other family gatherings, even adult children, as hard as that is, because they have their own journey.
Right.
And
yes.
there are times they don't show up because they can't, because they're missing their sibling. But so again, if you have children at home, that's not a walk I've had to walk. Because Lawson was my youngest. But I think in any situation, the cliche, we can't pour from an empty cup, fits. So take care of yourself. Give yourself grace. Don't feel the pressure of the outside world telling you what you have to do. Last year, my only Christmas event happened on Christmas Eve. And my daughter and her husband and my grandchildren left on Christmas Eve to go home about 3:00 in the afternoon. And I took down all my Christmas decorations, and that tree that sat in my living room undecorated for a week was out the door by 6:00, laying in the snow by 6:00 on Christmas Eve, because I just felt like I needed it all gone. I felt suffocated by the holiday last year, and it needed to be gone. It's okay. It's okay.
I love that you gave yourself grace to do that instead of, chiding yourself for, oh, I can't take it down. I can't do this, It's still Christmas. I have to wake up. No one takes their Christmas tree down early. I love that you gave yourself grace to do that.
I threw it outside. I took a picture of it. I sent it to my daughter. I go, and now the neighbors think I'm crazy, but it's okay.
You know what? I was going to say
that,
how some people will think, what will the neighbors think? What will the neighbors say? Who cares? This is your journey. It is your horrific journey that you have been given. You did not ask for this god-awful journey, but all you can do is muddle your way through it the best that you can. Now, the one thing I love about you, Shelley, is that you give yourself grace. You're very honest about your feelings and just this journey you've been on. And for all of the hurt and this horrific journey that you've been on, there's still a sense of hope and resiliency about you. Where does that come from? How do you take that and carry it through the holidays and into the new year?
So when I lost Lawson, like I said, I have seen child loss in my family. And when I lost Lawson, obviously devastated. But I have said to myself, and I've worked very hard. It has not been easy, folks, but it has been a journey. But I have worked very hard because Lawson meant enough to me that I do not want his legacy to be that when he left this physical world, I lost my mind. I got angry. I turned to things I wouldn't normally do. Like I'm not going to become an alcoholic. I'm not going to end my marriage. I'm not going to be a statistic. So for me, it literally is carrying on a life that my child would be proud of, to be the mom that he would want me to be the grandmother that he would want me to be the member of society that figures it out. I'm not perfect. I grieve hard. I have days. I have moments. And sometimes I have weeks. But at the end of the day, I get up every single day and I think, okay, so this is hard. But what would Lawson want me to do? Lawson wouldn't want me to stay in bed. He wouldn't want me to not be around family. He wouldn't want me to not decorate for Christmas. So I do my best. I try to balance that legacy of him and my own personal abilities. And some days it works, some days it doesn't. But the days it doesn't, I try again tomorrow. I give myself that time to say, whatever. You want a pity party? I pack my bags, I go on a pity trip, and when I'm done, I pick myself up, I dust myself off, and I say, okay, well, that was hard, but I still woke up this morning, so I have something to do here on earth, and then I move on. So it really is about the legacy of him. I would feel awful if people went, yeah, Shelley was this, huge career woman, focused, all these things, and then she lost her son, and now she's homeless and sad and whatever
And
that
not
is,
showing up for your other
and
child, and
not
that's
showing
another
up.
thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Lawson would, and I know I talk about Lawson like I know him, probably because I've just read him so many times now that I do feel like I know him.
it's
And
been a
Lawson
few.
has visited me when I'm not even reading, and I'll message Shelley. I'll be like, is this going on? Or Lawson just said this. Does this make sense? And it has always been accurate. And Lawson just had such a huge heart. He would so want you to continue loving others in his name.
He's said it from beyond this earth, Christy. From him to your lips to my ears, he has said it.
Yes, he has.
Like,
And I know people watching this, if you don't believe in psychic mediumship, that is absolutely fine. But it's something that, because once I read a spirit enough, it starts getting hard for them to identify themselves differently in a way that I don't recognize them. So one time I remember I was reading Shelley, and Lawson had said something from, he's transitioned in the spirit world. He said something about what had just happened. Like something had just happened. He was identifying it. He was telling me something, advice to give you. And Shelley admitted that before she has a reading with me, she tells Lawson what to say, or tells him, okay, you better come up with something new to prove to me it's you. And Lawson has always done that. He's always done a good job. He follows directions very well.
I do. I put out 4 or 5 things into the universe. Like, hey, buddy, like, got this meeting with Christy. Like, I either need to hear about this or this or this or this. And normally I hear about 2 out of 3 or 4 out of 5. Like, something comes up that, yeah, that's happened recently in my life that I've said, you know what? I just need to know that you're still around. Like, so it for sure works.
And ask your spirit, this is completely off subject, but ask your spirits. They will show up. They will prove that they are around you. Now, something that Shelley doesn't know I'm going to mention, but I'm going to mention it because then we're about to close this down, that she is going to be starting a grief counseling business. And so be looking for that. We will do something together in January to kind of do a kickoff for that. But she is going to start offering her services to help parents navigate this just horrific path that no one ever in their worst nightmare dreamed that they would be on.
This life that we find ourselves in that we did not ask for, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here, Shelley. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing your beautiful story and your insights. I so appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Christy.